Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Michaela and this is just another little recording of some musings that I've been thinking about. I'm actually writing a paper for graduate school on my helping philosophy, so I thought it'd be a good time for me to come on and just brainstorm, maybe thinking out loud, like using this as a little bit of a journal or a diary to try to get my thoughts more clear. I've been doing a lot of writing, but I thought I'd try to share some of the thoughts that have been coming up around this paper and around the idea of helping. First, I just want to share a little life update. If you live in the Seattle area, you probably know this, but we've been having some really terrible wildfire smoke for the last basically month, all of September and October. And now it's actually October 24th. And so you probably know if you live here, but just a couple days ago, it finally started raining. And I'm just so overjoyed and relieved. I never thought I would like the rain this much. This is something if you know me, you know how much I love the sun, but having some rain and not having smoke has been so huge. And honestly, this has been a big reason I haven't been able to make as many videos and come on here as much as I've wanted to the last 6 weeks or so, because I've been having a lot of issues breathing. I have very, very sensitive lungs to smoke. And so I've been having a whole resurgence of health problems that I haven't had in a decade. Things like asthma and just super congested and headaches. And I think, it could be maybe, it's always a maybe, is it COVID? But I think it's mostly going to be coming from the smoke. And it's hard because once I start having breathing problems, then I don't sleep as well. And I'm always holding my breath or short of breath. And I can just feel the impacts of the anxiety and the fight or flight that my nervous system's in all the time for the last 6 weeks. So it's feels so good to be able to breathe and take deep breaths. And I'm still pretty congested, but I think it'll take me a little while to get all of that junk out of my lungs. But I've been trying to do all of the different health protocols that I know to do. So that's a little life update on me. I'm hoping now that the weather is more regular for this time of year and we won't be having as much smoke. I'll get more fresh air and hopefully can make more videos and use my voice more and not have to be short of breath as I'm speaking. I think that's been the hardest part, is I've come on to record a video and I just get choked up or out of breath really easily. So it's really nice right now to be able to just breathe. Now, making these videos will not be free of challenges or struggles or puzzles, I guess is the way to put it. Right now, I'm in my living room, which is really the only room. I have all the lights on, and it's the only room that has enough light. So that's another issue that I'm going to run up against this winter, I think, is trying to find good places to record these videos. Because, no matter what overhead lights and everything, that the natural light is really my favorite light, and it's going to be hard to come by. So even though I'm grateful for the rain, it comes with the darkness. So, and as we approach the solstice, the daylight's just going to get shorter and shorter. I don't know if you live here, it gets dark at 4 o'clock after daylight saving. So not looking forward to that. I'll hopefully make some videos on how I cope with the winter here another time. But today I want to get to the topic. Sorry for the little side quest there. But the topic today is being a helper. Or another way to put it is, what is helping? How can you actually help another person? And now a little background on me. I've probably already spoken about this, but I have been in the profession of education for the last 13, 14 years as a teacher. And I think I would consider that a helping profession. I definitely held space for a lot of different struggles that my students went through. And then I'm also just helping them with their education and helping them learn and helping them grow and things like that. So now I'm stepping into this new, even more helping occupation of being a therapist. And one of my first real full-blown papers that I've had to write that I'm working on this weekend is my helping philosophy. And we're supposed to be using some of the texts that we've been reading, which have been really, really helpful, to think about what does it mean to be a helper. And when I think about this, I think a lot about my education philosophy and how they're sort of related. So I'll talk a little bit about that first. You can see George up there on the couch. He wants to be in the video. Hi, George. Hi. So, a big part of my educational philosophy isn't really that mainstream because for me, education really doesn't come from the teacher, it comes from the learner. So, there's this really great metaphor that I've heard where you talk about a garden. And if you're a gardener and you want your flowers to grow, you can't force them to grow. You can't just say, like, I will punish you if you don't grow, or I will reward you if you do, because the flowers are going to grow whether you like it or not. And the only thing you can really do as the gardener is to create an environment where they're going to grow, giving them all their needs, giving them water and sunlight and things like that. So in the same way, I see teaching as kind of creating a safe space for learning to kind of spontaneously occur, believing that my students naturally want to learn and that are naturally curious, and just providing the materials and the environment that is safe, that allows them to feel curious and take risks. And that to me is more important for learning than forcing someone to learn. I honestly just don't believe you can force someone to learn. You can force someone to memorize something, I guess through punishments and rewards, but deep, true learning and being an empowered learner and being good at learning itself, I think takes initiative on the part of the learner and not so much on the part of the teacher. Now, I've been trying to translate this kind of philosophy that I have towards the work of a therapist. And I feel like there's so much in common with these philosophies. So when I think of a helper, I think of the other metaphor I think of is like, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him to fish. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but that metaphor of like spoon feeding someone, doing something for them, kind of going above and beyond to really help the person by doing their work for them is different than encouraging and empowering them to do the work for themselves. And I know this kind of seems obvious, I'm sure, to most people, but it's subtle how it sneaks in. How this idea that since I'm the therapist or since I'm the teacher, like I know better, I'm an expert, not only do I feel that way, or a therapist might feel that way, but the client and the student also can feel that way. That power dynamic is set up of like, I am the person that's giving you information and you are the one receiving the information. Or if it's the skill or the learning. And there are times where I might know a skill or I might know information about the nervous system that is helpful for my client to understand and to really navigate their healing. But I want to be really careful to pick and choose when it's appropriate for me to do that kind of top-down approach. And majority of my helping philosophy involves kind of evoking and making space for the client to fully step into their own healing process. I think ultimately I see myself as a therapist wanting to put myself out of a job. Really, I think the ideal thing is not to have someone need me to be healed or to have a self-fulfilling life. My job would be to structure or support them along the way when they feel lost and get them to a place where they can feel empowered enough and skilled enough to take it from there. And you've probably heard me talk a little bit in the past about rewards and punishments. And there's this whole deeper philosophy that goes into that. But I think it goes the same for therapy. I think if you kind of structure your therapy in a way that is like, you're basically setting it up so that your client is trying to please you or afraid of being punished by you, then once that client leaves, they're going to go back to doing what they're doing. So let's say I'm working with someone that has an addiction. If I set up a situation where whenever they tell me that they did their thing again, then I get upset with them or I scold them, that's kind of setting up a fear of punishment. So maybe they'll stop doing the thing that they're addicted to, but then once they stop seeing me, then they'll go right back to it. Another way to look at it is, a little bit more of a sneaky way of controlling someone in this way is through rewards. So what that might look like is someone doesn't do the thing they're addicted to and they come looking for my approval, and I give them a pat on the head, so to speak, and say, good job, you did good. And then they continue not to do the thing until we're not working together and they're not getting that reward. They'll just go right back to it. So I think you're getting the idea here that punishments and rewards and external motivation in general, it might be a tool that you can use in the beginning, and I'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, I really believe strongly that it doesn't last. It doesn't create lasting change and deep empowerment and deep healing. Now, I want to clarify that that doesn't mean you have to get rid of all things that look like punishments and rewards, but just being aware that it's a tool that you're using and not assuming that that is the basis of human nature. I think it's more helpful to believe in the potential of everyone to be self-actualized and to become their best self. This goes back to the last video I made on inner healing intelligence and thinking about just that innate desire to grow and to heal that we have in our psyche and in our bodies. Believing that that same intelligence exists in my clients, I think that belief in itself is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So just going into sessions, seeing my clients in their highest self, believing that they're capable of healing, I think that framework and that attitude towards my clients in itself is going to be helpful. If we strengthen our self-love, if we heal the deeper self-critical stories that we have, if we heal some of our childhood traumas, these are things that'll help us naturally become the best versions of ourselves by kind of removing those obstacles. I feel like it's an uphill battle when you're fighting against so much internal criticism. If you can remove those parts, it's so much easier to fulfill your highest self. Now, I feel like I'm getting a little deep in the weeds here, and this again could be an entire other video. It's just this philosophy. But going back to what the paper is about, the paper is me describing my helping philosophy. So one way to think about helping is it seems like as a verb, or even helper as like an identity, is someone who helps someone do something, right? So if I am a therapist, I help someone heal. If I am a teacher, I help someone learn. So it's really just rethinking that idea of helping, and instead of thinking of it as I do it for them, I think of it as I empower them. So helping in itself is an active thing that I'm doing. It's not like I'm just sitting back and letting them do all the work, but creating kind of the structure and the attitudes around empowerment and around kind of collaboration. And another time this shows up is with tutoring. I think a lot of people will hire me as a tutor, and I've had this happen in the past where they just assume that since I'm their tutor, I'm going to literally do their homework for them and they're just going to watch me. And if I don't do that, then what are they paying me for, kind of thing. And I just try to explain to them like my philosophy, and that isn't in their best interest. Like if they have to go take the test, or if they actually want to like succeed in this subject, then eventually they're going to have to empower themselves to learn it themselves. And sometimes them wanting me to do it for them is just coming from a place of deep insecurity. So trying to like bolster their confidence and kind of scaffold it in a way that helps them feel empowered, and so that they know they can do it themselves. And I recognize that a lot of this is through the lens of a teacher, which is most of what I've been doing professionally. And so far I haven't done as much coaching and therapy. So I'm going to see how this kind of ends up shaking out, how this translates. But I want to take that attitude of empowerment and of collaboration into this next step in my life, this next profession, and really empower my clients to find the things they need to heal themselves. A lot of this has to do also with just being more culturally attuned to different worldviews and different cultures. If I go in with the I know what's right and this is what you need to do, that often doesn't really fit with that individual's culture or where they're coming from. So really asking a lot of questions, being curious, trying to understand what works for them and what happiness looks like to them. What does it look like to heal, and what does it look like to have a positive outcome from therapy? So kind of getting that information before I impose my own beliefs. That way I can work with the client and collaborate and help them by helping them help themselves is really what I'm trying to say. So thank you for listening, and I hope that made sense. Now I have the challenge of trying to condense that into a paper with like a very strict essay format. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't been in school in like 15 years. So all of this new like stuff that I have to do, the formatting and everything is a little foreign to me, but I think I'll figure it out. Luckily, Google has all the answers. Anyway, I hope that you have an awesome day, and please let me know if you have any questions or comments down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you and start a discussion about this. If you have any disagreements, I welcome that as well. And thanks for being here.